You're watching Roll Tide Daily, the new daily program for Crimson Tide fans, presented by SEC Country. Now, here's your host, former Alabama All-American, Mike Johnson.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back into this awesome Wednesday edition, Hump Day, Gump Day, I guess you will, of Roll Tide Daily. Appreciate you guys joining us yet again. For anybody that got to join us yesterday, obviously a full show. Got to talk to Mark Burnett. Got to cover a number of different topics around Alabama football. Thank you to anybody that got a chance to put 30 minutes aside and check the show out yesterday. Obviously had a good time with all that. All you guys continue to weigh in the comment section and create a ton of great conversation as far as Alabama football goes. Robbie Harris already weighing in there in the Facebook comment section, says, Roll Tide, Mikey. Roll Tide right back at you, Robbie Harris. Got a full show set up today. One of my good buddies from back when I played, and also my former roommate, Preston Dial, is going to weigh in. He's calling in from, I believe, up in Chicago for the weekend, so we'll get a chance to catch up with him, get some of his thoughts on the goings-on around the Alabama football program. We've got a couple of different notes coming at you from Bill Bender at Sporting News, talking about who he thinks Alabama could line up with in the playoff. A little bit of insight on that. It looks like Alabama Clemson 4 for the national title in terms of what Bill Bender's thinking. Also going to touch on a little bit of Alabama's new dining facility. A lot of you probably seen it on social media. We're going to show you that video a little bit later. And also, Alabama's record against the spread, been really good at home, but also been excellent on the road for you gamblers out there that are planning on taking a peek at that. And also coming at you later in the show, Scott Cochran Video of the Week once again. Very thankful to be able to play that for you guys. You guys are continuing to weigh in the comment section. Mark Denson with a laugh. Jamie and Tremaine McClain, Best Tide Podcast. Mary Monto saying Roll Tide Roll from Rocky Boy, Tennessee. Maybe Rocky Top, something like that. Do want to start off with the question of the day, though. And obviously, this is something we like to have a lot of fun with. This is an interesting question for me, too, because I get a lot of different responses about this from Alabama fans. Question of the day today, your favorite bowl game for Bama to go play in. Now, I played in the Cotton Bowl. I played in Shreveport. I played in the Sugar Bowl. I played out in the Rose Bowl out in Pasadena. Obviously, a lot of fans like to follow along. Some people don't like when Bama goes to the Sugar Bowl, haven't had a lot of success down in New Orleans. What's your favorite bowl game, or bowl site for that matter, for Bama to go take part in? Is it the Rose Bowl? Is it the Sugar Bowl? Maybe the Cotton Bowl? Some of you guys probably went down to Tampa a couple years ago. The Orange Bowl has been a good spot as well. Antonio Ragland weighing in saying Roll Tide from South Korea. So continue to weigh in on that. I think that's going to be a great conversation today to talk about your favorite bowl game for Bama to play in, or bowl site, whatever it is. Santa Clara, California this year will be the first time it's ever hosted a national championship game. So hopefully that's everybody's favorite by the end of the year. Speaking of which, let's get rolling here with topic number 1, 2. And this comes out from sportingnews.com. This is Bill Bender from over at Sporting News. And I thought he had a couple interesting takes on what he thinks will be the projections later on the year for where Alabama football could possibly land there in the first round of the playoffs going in December on into January. We have a graphic to show you guys, a full screen here to show you where Bill Bender thinks that Bama could land at the end of the year. This is his projected college football playoff. Now, December 29th is going to be the first round of the college football playoff. He thinks Oklahoma, Lincoln Riley, Kyler Murray, all those the Oklahoma Sooners out there are going to face off against Alabama down there in the Orange Bowl. Obviously, Bama's had a lot of success down in the Orange Bowl of late, winning a national title down there in 2012 against Notre Dame. He also has Clemson against Ohio State there in the rematch from a couple of years ago over in the Cotton Bowl. Remember, Clemson a couple of years ago beats Ohio State by about 31 out there in the Fiesta Bowl. And that shapes up to have Clemson versus Alabama 4 there in the national title game out in Levi's Stadium in Santa Clara, California. I know a lot of people would be willing to make the trip out to Santa Clara, California to see an Alabama-Clemson, fourth time around rematch. So that's going to be interesting to kind of keep our eyes on as we move forward here in the offseason. Now, I don't want to move past the Oklahoma game just yet, because I know a lot of Alabama fans probably licking their chops to get their kind of rematch against the Oklahoma Sooners. Obviously, Lincoln Riley does not have Baker Mayfield anymore. Now, if I'm being honest with you, I don't know if this comes to fruition. I've got a lot of questions about Lincoln Riley as a head coach. This is not Baker Mayfield. This is not Bob Stoops. This is Lincoln Riley and Kyle Murray, the soon-to-be baseball player coming in there as a projected starting quarterback. Obviously going to be a Heisman candidate as the season continues to move on. It's going to be interesting to see if they can really keep up with the Big 12. We always seen the Big 12 has a tendency to kind of get left out of some of these games. But I got to be honest with you, I would be licking my chops in terms of getting the Oklahoma-Alabama rematch from the Sugar Bowl a couple of years ago. We all know that Bob Stoops has loved to run his mouth about the SEC. They knocked off a bad Auburn team a couple of years ago and really hit swan song over there at Oklahoma. So that would be great to be able to see Bama face back off against Oklahoma in that game. I think that Bama but absolutely wiped the floor with Oklahoma. Now, they're going to have a decent offensive line. I'm pretty sure they're going to have a good offense, but that Big 12 defense, in my mind, you saw Georgia kind of blow the doors out on that defense in the second half last year in that Rose Bowl, so that would be a fun one to definitely be able to take in next year in Miami. Now, if they do win the game in Miami, you saw Bill Bender's predictions right there. We can probably put it back up on the screen. Bama versus Clemson 4 there in Santa Clara, California. I would be making the trip. I'm not going to lie. I would love to see that game out in Santa Clara, California. And I'll be honest with you, I've said this before on the show, Clemson doesn't even really scare me that much this year. I know that everybody talks up the Clemson-Alabama rematch. Bama's offensive line was able to handle that defensive line with such, I don't want to say ease last year, but they were able to get it done. Jalen Hurts was able to win that game at quarterback. They didn't even take Tua Tagovailoa coming in at halftime. So I don't know that game scares me as much, but there you have Bill Bender kind of making his projections in terms of what he thinks could possibly go on next year in the playoff. I think it's funny to kind of highlight some of those things. Ethan Chancey kind of weighing in on our question of the day. Any bowl that Bama plays for the national championship in, Classy Coas, I hope I'm saying the name right, RTR, back-to-back champions again. Ronald Berry saying Roll Tide from Deepville, Alabama. Shane O'Mac, Oklahoma won't make the playoffs. Shane, I tend to actually kind of agree with that. I think it's going to be an uphill climb. I would look more for maybe a Washington team facing off against Ohio State sitting there. Washington's got a chance to make a lot of noise on a national stage early in the year. They're going to face off against Auburn in Atlanta to start off the season. I think Auburn's going to be pretty good, but I actually have Washington in that game with the defensive line. I think they're returning like 18 starters, so that's going to be something to kind of keep an eye on as we move forward. Roll Tide roll. You don't beat Nick Saban twice. Midland, Texas. This is the Rose Bowl, actually the favorite site. Michael Wayne, Wilson Wayne, and saying the Cotton Bowl. Rusty Ford saying Roll Tide from Lufkin, Texas. Roll Tide to you, Rusty. You're over there a little bit of enemy territory in terms of who you're probably a little. Mary Fairley says the Iron Bowl. The Iron Bowl is the favorite bowl for Alabama to play in. I think that's definitely interesting. Like I said earlier, Antonio Ragland kind of weighing in and saying Roll Tide from South Korea. Love getting a chance to see where a lot of you guys are lined up playing right now, or watching the show, or kind of commenting along as far as the show goes. Now, I do have to tell you guys, I will answer a question of the day for myself. I have played in the Rose Bowl. I went to watch Bama in the Fiesta Bowl a couple of years ago. I was in Tampa to watch them in the national championship game a couple of years ago. I've played in Shreveport twice. I've played in the Cotton Bowl, in the old Cotton Bowl, not in the new stadium down there. And I have played in the Sugar Bowl. That was not great memories against Utah a few years ago. I got injured in that game. So mine by far and away is definitely the Rose Bowl when you want to highlight the best places for Alabama to play in bowl games. I don't think that's any shocker to anybody. Playing the SEC Championship in 2009, getting a chance to put those roses in our mouth as we walk off the field and just beat Tim Tebow and the Florida Gators, knowing that we were going to get our shot to go out to the Rose Bowl out there in Pasadena and get our chance to win that national championship back in 2009. So the Rose Bowl is at the top of my kind of Mount Rushmore as far as the bowl games go. I did, however, enjoy Scottsdale, Arizona, Tempe, Arizona, and all those places out there to be able to watch Bama play from the stands a few years back. We had a lot of fun out there. A couple of my buddies and me drove across country. Susie Napier saying Roll Tide from Waynesboro, Mississippi. Don Lavelle saying Roll Tide from Kennesaw. Don, you're right up the street from us. We're sitting here in Sandy Springs, Georgia, bringing you the show, so hope you're having a good time watching. I do want to invite everybody, too, to go ahead and share the show on Facebook, on YouTube, wherever your outlet is, on Twitter. Get a chance to share the show. We'd want to welcome in all the Alabama fans to hop in on the conversation. Maybe they have a different answer than you do in terms of the question of the day, your favorite bowl game for Bama to play in. And obviously, as we project where Bama could land in the season, I agree with some of the commenters. It's too early to predict. We don't know what's going to happen, but I think it's fun, right here at the end of June to be able to look forward to what we could possibly be seeing. Chris Dupree saying Roll Tide from Daphne, Alabama. Daniel Mack, Rose Bowl is amazing. I've been there twice myself. Del Fuller, Roll Tide from State College, PA. Boy, you're definitely in enemy territory, but thanks no less for joining us. Shannon Burgess, our LSU fan over in the YouTube comment section. Nola has to be pretty popular. Shannon, I think Nola should be pretty popular, but Bama hasn't had a lot of success in the Sugar Bowl. Not since going back to like probably 1992. I think Bama's lost 3 games before last year down in New Orleans at the Sugar Bowl. So probably a favorite site. It's definitely a close one, but I don't know that a lot of Alabama fans have enjoyed the games down in New Orleans so much. And obviously, I guess they did get the win back in 2011 against your LSU Tigers down there for that game. So without further ado, I do want to move on to topic number 2. And how does Bama continue to get to these college football playoff games? How do they get the opportunity to go to bowl games? Well, they have the best facilities in the country. That's for one. They got to feed the players in order to get the players enough energy for them to move on, through some of these games. Bama announced or kind of opened up their new dining hall right there outside the football facility yesterday, and they were able to put out pretty incredible video. We're going to give you guys some insight. Watch some of the players as they first roll through some of the lines right here. Pay attention to Jonah Williams kind of grilling his own steak. Damian Harris sitting there enjoying a pretty good meal. I got to tell you, the facilities didn't look like this when I was on campus back under Mike Shula. We had the video to show you guys right here.
Appreciate that, boss. Jonah Williams. We're out here at the brand new dining facility, grilling my own steak. That's how we do it at Bama.
30 right.
You don't like this? I don't know what you like then, man.
It's a pretty steak right there.
You feel me? Get me right.
This how they coming?
It's like that. I think it's awesome. Brand new. Food's great. It's nice. Got a great view too. Thank you.
Boy, that's some excellent stuff there when you get a chance to see Jonah Williams out there grilling his own steak out at the patio right there. I got to tell you, things weren't like that. Like I said, Damian Harris looked like Ross Pierce-Baker was able to kind of go out there and grab a meal himself. A couple of other players, maybe Christian Miller mixed in the video right there. Obviously very proud of the new, I think they're calling it the Nutrition Center over there at Alabama. And this overlooks the practice field. A couple of you guys got to see this. It kind of encompasses where the parking lot is for any of you that have been in Tuscaloosa. Having that building right there between the football facility and the swim facility, kind of circling things in there. I think this is absolutely incredible. Now, I think it goes without saying, this is a huge tool in recruiting. Bama continues to lead the country as far as facilities go, continuing to kind of outpace everybody else, really setting the standard in the bar. Now, when you come to, Tuscaloosa, that you're going to hear these recruits do these interviews, it's incredible. It looks better than anything I've ever been a part of. When you're kind of reading those comments and asking those questions about what it looked like, there's some great insight there from Alabama Video as far as what they're looking for in terms of what's going on there with the dining hall. James Perkins weighing in saying the Gain Weight Center. Shane O'Mac saying I want to eat there now, and Lindsey Page saying hard knock life there in the Facebook comment section. Chris Stewart said losing the entire secondary is a concern. Still think Bama has a great season. Completely agree with that. Bull Gator weighing in the YouTube comment section saying good luck dining hall. I think we have Preston Dial ready on the phone right now. This is my old buddy, my old roommate from back in college. PD, man, I appreciate you joining us. We couldn't get you a couple of weeks ago. How's it going, brother?
Big Mike, all is well, man. All is good. How about yourself?
Yeah, man, I appreciate you joining us. I know that you're up in there in Chicago. Preston Dial, for the crowd that's watching right now, he lives in Nashville, Tennessee these days, up there with his beautiful wife and his son. PD, we just saw the video of the Bama dining facilities. Man, these guys are living high on the hog these days. And it wasn't like that for me and you back in Mary Burt Cafeteria or Bryant Hall, being able to eat some of those meals over there. Not that we had it bad, but these guys have it pretty good. I mean, what do you make of Bama just being at the front of the facilities race these days and Nick Saban being able to give really these players whatever they want? We just saw Jonah Williams out on the porch grilling his own steak, man. That would have been a good time for me and you back in the day.
Yeah, we would have saved a lot of money. You, myself, and Del Marco from South Finest Meat probably would have been able to pay rent a little easier. It's unbelievable, what these guys got. And, it's not one where you say necessarily that they're spoiled. I mean, it's just that, we are creating the standard. And I think it's incredible because not only there's just so many points you could hit on why it's important. One, obviously, you and I in particular both got there, and I had the nickname when I got to Alabama of Skeletor because I needed to put on so much weight. But to get these guys prepared to play at Alabama is amazing, but also be able to throw that little tidbit in of, oh yeah, by the way, you'll be in the greatest shape of your life if you get the opportunity to play in the NFL. You'll be physically ready. I just think that not only does it look good for parents because a lot of these guys, you and I came from great families, but a lot of these guys aren't quite as fortunate, and to be able to come out and say, hey, I know my kid's going to be fed, and I know he's going to be forced to go to class. I mean, and kind of to have the Taj Mahal of all the facilities, I think it's really, really special, and we're super blessed to be able to do this.
Yeah, Preston, I definitely agree with that, too. And you and I, obviously, very fortunate. We grilled a number of our own steaks back there on the own back patio at the house over there off Claybrook, but some of those guys not so fortunate, and you're definitely right to highlight that. We also talked a little bit earlier, too. Bill Bender kind of puts out his playoff projections. Kind of has Bama against Oklahoma down in Miami before beating them and headed to Bama Clemson 4. You follow along this program. You've obviously watched Bama knock off some huge teams and get some big victories in the last few years since you graduated. What do you make of Bama's chances of repeating in 2018? You were on a team that tried to repeat back in 2010. Obviously a very difficult thing to do, but Bama's going to try to do that again this year. What kind of chances do you give them of doing that?
Living in Nashville, it's obviously enemy territory. Mostly ball country and the occasional Vandy fans sprinkled in. So we talk a lot about their chances, our chances, and all that stuff. I think kind of like what you hit on in 2010. If we can get out of our own conference, I think the sky's the limit. I know when we were all on a team together and we're got our heart ripped out of our chest in 2008, and we're able to come out, get out of it in 2009. I think we'd all agree that not everybody in the country may agree, but here on SEC country, I think a lot of people will. That's the hardest part. Those first 12 games, not slipping in between the conference test every other week, or kind of the 3 or 4 conference games we have in a row. Those kids, if we can get through there, kind of unscathed, or maybe with one nick, I think we've got a great shot. I think, just the style of football that's being played in the SEC and the quality of athletes that are all kind of flocking there. I like our chances, I hate to, count my chickens before they hatch. We definitely got to get out of the conference. I think there's a lot of good coaches and a lot of good talent right now.
Yeah, you're getting a lot of love in the Facebook comment section right now, PD. Shane O'Mac saying Preston Dial was a good player, but an even better person. And also getting a shout-out from Becky Burton-Pritchard saying, hey, PD, giving you a little wave hand. So a couple of people giving you the shout-out as far as that Facebook and YouTube comment section go. Now, I do want to get your memory, too. You and I obviously were part of the turnaround. I was recruited as well as you under Mike Shula. What's your favorite memory when you look back on your time under Nick Saban, really the differences between some of those things? What's your memories of the Saban turnaround? What's the first thing that pops in your head? I know you get that question a lot, but I think it's always interesting to kind of dive into that conversation.
Well, I think the turnaround started, unfortunately, in my memory, I think the turnaround really started when we were just kind of killing ourselves in January and February. But the highlight, kind of reaping what you sow, honestly, was being in that locker room in Atlanta in 2008. Against Clemson, and looking you and Antoine Caldwell, Andre Smith, Rashad Johnson, John Parker Wilson, to be able to look all of us in the eyes, and we definitely came out and kind of imposed our will in the first half, and to look at each other and we all had that fire in our eyes, like it's not it's time to step on the throat now. It's not time to let up and high five and think about what we're going to do when we get back home. That was like we've changed. Our thought process and what was important to us and how we finished the game was all we cared about. And I think that was the start of a whole new ball game. Just changing of the mindset was just special. To be able to do that with your friends and look around and to know that they thought you had changed, and the fire that they could probably see in your eyes and I could see in yours. That's what I remember. That was the highlight of the turnaround for me.
Yeah, a lot of those people that were sitting in there, in that locker room back there in 2008, 2009, even with you in your senior year in 2010. And we talk about recruiting a lot here on the show, PD. I do want to talk a little bit about that Mobile, Alabama, that Southern Alabama pipeline. Obviously, Bama fans have enjoyed a lot of success from players from there. Yourself, A.J. McCarron, Brandon Gibson, DJ Fluker, even going out to Foley and getting Julio Jones. What do you make of the pipeline, man? Is the Alabama fanhood and the Alabama dynasty just that deep down there in Mobile, Alabama?
It is. I think I think a lot of us, Mark Barron, myself, AJ, a lot of us, especially myself, Brandon Gibson, and some of us on the front end of that, and even a lot of the guys that were walking on at that time out of Mobile, because at the time there was guys like Jamarcus and Chevis Jackson that were all leaving and going to LSU, FSU. A lot of great defensive ends that we lost to UCLA and some of those teams in Texas. I think that football is important down there. You grew up 45 miles down the road. You know how important it is, all across the Gulf Coast. It's just important. I think there's a lot of talent, and the thing that makes it interesting is there's talent at private schools, there's talent at public schools, and there's talent at some schools you've never even heard of. And I think that to keep that in state is important. not just in Mobile, Pensacola, with Trent Richardson, yourself, and all the guys out of there, all the way to Glenn Coffey and Roy Boy and all the guys out of, Fort Walton Beach and out of Tallahassee and all through there. I mean, I think it's important that we dominate down there. There's just, not necessarily myself, but for the rest of the guys, there's a lot of speed that comes out of the Gulf Coast. And, there's a lot of guys that, football is what they think about year-round. So I think that, I think we're doing a hell of a job down there, and I think that there's a lot of talent to pick from. So I think it's important that we stay involved down there.
President, I don't want to give away too much of our next topic coming up here after we get off the phone with you, but I do want to hit it on a little bit with you before we dive into it. We're going to talk about Bama's record against the spread in away games and neutral site games over the last 10 years, starting with Bama against Clemson back there in 2008. What's your favorite away stadium that you got a chance to play in? I don't think we covered the spread down there in LSU back in 2008, but I have a lot of great memories from those games in Baton Rouge, those games in Oxford, Mississippi, obviously Jordan-Hare Stadium. Did you have a favorite away stadium to play in that maybe you can kind of point to and you say, boy, there's no doubt about Bama loves playing some of these road games?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you and I are birds of the same feather when it comes to that. I think that Baton Rouge is tough to beat. I mean, just how hostile the environment feels from the minute you land in Louisiana, it's tough to beat. You get into some loud, smaller stadiums. I think, Fayetteville's awesome. I think that, Ole Miss is awesome. You get into Auburn, Jordan-Hare. I mean, when the fans are right on top of you, it's pretty cool, but it's tough to beat LSU.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. It's definitely my favorite away stadium that I played in, not just because of the teams we were playing on, but some of the games are going to go down in history. Hey, before we let you go, PD, I do want to chime in on a topic we've had on the show with a couple of different guests. Obviously, John Parker Wilson jumped on with us and chimed in on this. Corey Reamer follows up. A couple of guys that knew Jeremy Pruitt from his high school days at Hoover High School. Obviously, you know Jeremy Pruitt. You're around Jeremy Pruitt a ton. You know Kirby Smart as well. The debate kind of circles on amongst Alabama fans. Who is really scarier in the long run? Now, Kirby's done some great things at Georgia. But you're going to get Jeremy Pruitt on a yearly basis up there at Tennessee. If you had to circle one of these guys you think is going to be a bigger danger to Alabama and Nick Saban and the dynasty, which one, in your opinion, is it?
That is a great question. Obviously, when Coach Pruitt first came on as quality control back when there was, much stricter limitations on who could be on the field and all that, obviously he lived in the dorms with us right beside us. And, that was pretty neat to have, a guy of such football pedigree living in the dorm beside you. That was, pretty unheard of if you think about it. But, I think that Kirby is I hate to compare him to another Georgia guy, but he's kind of like that Rick, that family man, that even kind of the feel of a, kind of how he runs his program, kind of like a Shula as far as, the family feel, and I think that, he's got, that kind of right, it's kind of got head coach written all over it. But man, I just, the fire in Coach Pruitt's eyes, I've had lunch with him a couple times in Nashville since, and, we've stayed in close touch. And my respect and more importantly, Coach Saban's respect for him and the X's and O's just scares me to death. Because he's a good old boy. He doesn't mince words. I tell a lot of the Tennessee folks up here, when the defense that that we kind of made popular, where you're shifting from zone to man and vice versa, and automatic blitzes off certain motions and certain pass routes and all that. He scares me to death. It just how good he is at the X's and O's. So, I won't say that one's definitely a clear above the other, but I will say that Jeremy Pruitt, scares me to death with how good he is at the X's and O's, and I've got the utmost respect for that. And obviously, Kirby's no dummy either, but I think that there's a lot of upside with Jeremy Pruitt.
Well, you got to love the insight right there from my man, Preston Dow. Preston, man, appreciate you joining us on the show finally. Nice able to get you on. Colin Visnick gives you a shout-out in the comment section, too, saying happy anniversary there to PD. Obviously, throwback to you and your beautiful wife up there. So thanks for joining us again, brother, and I look forward to talking to you again soon.
Guys, thank you so much. I love you, man. And Colin, Miss Becky, everybody, thank you all so much, and y'all have a great day.
All right, buddy. Roll Tide. That's Preston Dow, my old roommate, former teammate of mine back there with Alabama, coming from UMS right down there at Mobile, showing up and winning a ring up there at Alabama is a big deal to a lot of Alabama fans. Love talking to Preston, kind of getting his insight on some of the other things going around Alabama football. Now, to move on to the next topic, too, I think this is great to talk about. Any of you guys are gamblers out there? Obviously, Alabama You can't gamble in Alabama, but it is starting to be legalized across the United States, and Mississippi's putting those kind of things in right now. I want to talk about Alabama against the spread here in the last few years, and I think it was CBS Sports that hit on this. Tom Fornelli from CBS Sports kind of highlighting who's been the best bets as far as Alabama. It's a testament to how dominant Alabama has been that it's not only the best team in the SEC, but the best team against the spread as well. Tide has a record of 43-26 against the spread on the road or neutral sites compared to only 35-34 at home. That includes a mark of 15-6 against the spread outside Tuscaloosa in non-conference games. Now, that does start with the 2008 game there against Clemson. They're in the Georgia Dome, the old Georgia Dome, obviously blowing the doors off the spread in that game. That was supposed to be a number 9 ranked Clemson team going into the year. You remember Tommy Bowden ends up getting fired midseason after that blowout. 31-10, I believe, was the final score back in 2008. That leads to Dabo Swinney kind of being hired over at Clemson, and a little bit of irony going on with that. But I do want to highlight that now. I got 43-26 against the spread on the road or neutral site games since that 2008 Bama-Clemson game. I think that's absolutely mind-boggling. When you look at Nick Saban, really the opponents they've been facing off against there in some of those neutral site season openers, USC, Wisconsin, Virginia Tech, West Virginia. I mean, the list goes on of teams that you've been able to face off in those neutral site games. It's absolutely mind-boggling to me that Bama actually better in neutral site games, better on the road against the spread than they have been at home. They've been pretty good against at home against the spread too, but when you look at them being the number 1 ranked team in the SEC, Tom Fornelli has them in terms of people you can bet on. They say bet against Bama at home, yes, but definitely bet against Bama on the road. That's 43-26 against the spread in those road or neutral site games since the 2008 Bama-Clemson game back there in the Georgia Dome. So definitely something to keep in mind when you're throwing those bets down and gambling all that money. I know I like to gamble money, and it's probably one of the things I shouldn't be proud of, but I'll definitely be gambling on Bama this year once again, trying to win some more of that money. Without further ado, though, we do have the Scott Cochran video of the week. It is a little bit different than some of the other Scott Cochran videos of the weeks we have brought to y'all. I've told y'all Scott Cochran has a text message chain that he sends out videos on, but I thought this one was a little bit extra special. This comes from the Alabama football Twitter feed. This is Scott Cochran speaking to the team after the workout. Well, he wanted to recognize Jeff Allen, who's just been named Athletic Trainer of the Year. It's a cool insight into what it's like in summertime playing for Alabama football and how much love they have for a lot of the support staff kind of hovering around that team. Here's Scott Cochran speaking to the team, and then you're going to hear Jeff Allen as well.
Second. Yes, sir. Jeff Allen is receiving an award for being the freaking athletic trainer. Appreciate that. That was unexpected. I can't tell you how honored we are as a whole staff to take care of you, okay? I can't tell you how much it means to have your trust to allow us to take care of you. I promise you this. I got a daughter. I don't have a son, okay? You guys are my sons, okay? Is there? And I would never put you on this field, okay? I would never put you on this field if I didn't think it was safe and you could go, okay?
Well, that's some incredible words right there from Jeff Allen, and obviously getting to follow along. Anybody who pays close attention to Scott Cochran, Jeff Allen, really the entire support staff, these are the coaches right now for Alabama football. Nick Saban and company, they're doing their recruiting thing. They're kind of off the field. Some of those guys are taking vacations. Scott Cochran, Jeff Allen, you hear Jeff Allen right there saying, you guys really are my sons. He has a daughter actually enrolling at Alabama this coming year that's going to be a Crimson Net. So congratulations to my good buddy Jeff Allen in terms of getting that award and really just all the success he's had since the time that he's been in Alabama. Still hearing from a bunch of you guys in the comment section. Deborah Gorey Butler saying roll Tide roll. Becky Burton Pritchard saying love that video. Donald Brittany Schultz saying Theodore go Bobcats. Darren Sheffield saying Bama. Terrence Brand weighing in on the Vegas comment saying Vegas makes the spread 45 plus most home games, so smart money is always on the over. Shannon Burgess also weighing in saying I was at the game at Death Valley the last year Shula coached you guys there. Not a fun game for a lot of us that were in attendance. As always, I appreciate you guys watching the show. Always fun comments in the comment section. Love catching up with a bunch of you guys. Thank you to Preston Dial for getting a chance to join in with us. I know he's busy out in the business world these days that a lot of us are trying to stay away from here on a Hump Day Wednesday, but appreciate him joining in on the show. Thanks for everybody, obviously, for weighing in the comments. Brian Kennerby saying, good Wednesday, Mike. Thank you so much for the show and example. Roll Tide. Love when you guys are able to share the show and get a bunch of your friends to come in here and hang out with us and always comment on the show. Please continue to share the show. We'll be back on tomorrow, obviously, for our Thursday edition of Roll Tide Daily at 1 o'clock Eastern. If you guys do like SEC Country Live, once again, We'll be back on this afternoon at 3 o'clock Eastern time, myself and Brandon Adams from Dog Nation Daily. Appreciate you guys, obviously, joining us on this Wednesday hump day. Hope you guys have a good rest of your Wednesday. Till tomorrow, 1 o'clock Eastern time, Roll Tide.
You've been watching Roll Tide Daily, the new daily program for Crimson Tide fans, presented by SEC Country.